Hello and welcome. This is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and in this week's unique training we're going to show you how to create your very own task scheduler using only shapes as tasks and being able to drag and drop them anywhere on the schedule you want, including how to schedule them and unschedule them simply by dragging and dropping them. It's going to be an incredibly amazing training. I can't wait to share with you, so let's get started. Alright, thanks so much. I'm really glad you're able to join me for this one. We're going to be creating another completely amazing, unique training. We've done schedulers before, but this one's completely unique because we're only using shapes to create tasks, and we're going to be able to drag and move those shapes around so that we can reschedule tasks, change the time, change the duration. It's going to be a really great training. Even if you don't want to create any kind of a scheduler, just this training alone on shapes, we're going to be going through every aspect of how to create, how to color shapes, how to move, how to design, how to change every aspect of a shape, and how to place them on a screen, all completely with VBA. So it's going to be a masterclass on how to use shapes in Excel. So I hope you'll stay with us because we're going to show you how to do that and create this. If of course you have not subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Click the button down below, subscribe, and also click the notification icon bell. That is going to make sure that you get alerted to when we have new trainings each and every Tuesday. So I'm really great. We go through these trainings each and every week. I bring you something new. So your shares, your likes, your comments, I always appreciate it. I respond to each and every comment. I always appreciate your comments, even if it's some criticism or some feedback. I appreciate everything. So thanks so much. Why do we do this? Why do I do this? Why do I create these amazing applications for you? It's more than just teaching you Excel. I want to teach you how to become financially successful with Excel. And one of the reasons I've done that is to create the mentorship program. And if you've listened to these videos before, you've heard me talk about the mentorship program, but I've never gotten a chance to show you what can happen when you go through the mentorship program or what success you can have. And today I want to show you just that. Many years ago in 2016, I created a relatively basic software called the Labor Burden Calculator. And it's basically this. It was nothing fantastic, but it served a really good purpose. The purpose of this was to allow companies to enter employee information and then figure out the actual hourly cost of their employees based on whether it's employee paid benefits, paid leave, and all sorts of insurance and rates, and allowed them to figure out their hourly costs, and they could enter multiple employees and then just select an employee. Nothing amazing, nothing incredible, but it was certainly useful. So what I did is I created this application and I put it on the market. And when I say on the market, I just created a website. And here's the website that I created. It's called the Labor Burden Calculator. It's basically just a one page. So there's a video explaining the aspects of the video. You can watch it in Labor Burden. And so it kind of goes over the features of the application. And then down at the bottom, it's got some reviews and things like that, and how to, just something basic. So this is what I want to teach you. And of course, some bonuses and things. And then we've got some different prices, accountant version of 77. So what does this do? Let me show you. Let me take a look through my Outlook email and take a look at the payments. And you'll see here, if we scroll actually all the way up, starting with today actually, and then all the way down. So each one of these is payments for that single application. PayPal after PayPal after PayPal after PayPal. Fully automated, fully passive income. And that's exactly what I want you to get you on. I want to show you how you can do the same. And so by showing you the fruits of my labor many years ago, and now it's pretty much set up automatic. I don't do anything else with this application. And the more I can show you and the more I can share with you how to create these applications and how to get your skills to create passive income, I hope you'll join us. And to do that, you can join us at the mentorship program, myexcelmentor.com. I hope you'll join us there. I'll include the links down below, of course. So I'd love to show you how to do this. And of course, again, we're going to set you up, show you just how to do that. All right, thanks so much. Let's get to the training. We have so much to cover. So what do I want to do? I want to create a task manager today. And basically what I want to have is a week view calendar. So to do that, let's just start a heading and call this task manager, as we always do. And then again, I'm going to save these first two columns as for admin. So we're going to color those gray. And you'll notice that I use different colors sometimes. I try to keep it different. So let's just take a look at the colors that I'm using. I'm going to drop this down while we're formatting it. And if we go into the page layout and we see colors, I'm using in this one what we're calling a flow. Okay, for this one I'm going to use flow. So if you want to match that, you can see those colors in flow, because when you get it, you might see a different theme, different color. So okay, let's take a look and let's merge and center these. I'll go all the way to K, and then I want to create just a larger title, go in the middle, and then maybe 30, something a little bit bigger, and then I'll change the font something a little bit different. That's not good. That'll work. Okay, and so let's just change the color here, and I want to put a little fade down here. This screen is not going to be very exciting. It's going to be really basic, and that's good. We don't want something, but the purpose is going to be really amazing. So let's give it a fill effects. It means we don't have to put too much effort into the screen itself. Probably something fill effects, and we'll just use a 2 color combination, maybe this one and this one. And then again, a little bit faded on the lower row. The second button row is going to be used for shapes. So we'll have a few different buttons. We'll have next week and previous week. And I'll also have the ability to add a new scheduler and add a new task. So we want to be able to make sure we can do that. Okay, so now this is going to be basically it. And I'm going to color first 2 rows here. Going to bring those down, and then maybe I want to have a day of the week. So this is going to be, let's say, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, and then we'll color these. So I've got the 7 days that will color a little bit differently, and these will just give it the standard background color of blue. Okay, that gives us a nice fade, and I'll extend it over a little bit here. All right, so we have the basic format of what we're going to be doing, and now we're going to include some icons, and I'll show you first day. Let's go. I want to put the first date here. In this section, I'd like to have something like a drag and drop. So I'm going to merge and center this, and I want to have the place where people can drag tasks in which they don't want to schedule, in which they want to unschedule. So drag here to unschedule. Yeah, like that. I like to have that. And let's wrap that text, and we'll make it bigger. And I want to make it different, very different. I want to make it look, I want to make that stand out so that users know they can drag their tasks over into this section. And that way they can automatically unschedule them. It's going to be really unique, something very interesting. And we'll give it this double line border around it. So I want to make that area stand out. That's what I want to have, drag to stand out. And then this area, I'm going to put the scheduled time. We want the scheduled times here because we're going to have the date. So scheduled, let's just put time here. And then I'm going to merge and center that down. So that's going to be, and then I'll put the times down here. Okay, so we'll make that bold, and then I want the days here. So I'd like to have the days of the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I do want them based on a date in case you want to change it. So let's do a date here. I want the first, let's call it December. I want a Monday, I think December 31st of last year. So 30, 2019, that is a Monday, I believe. And I'm going to format that, so I'm going to put the day up here. So I'm going to put this is equal to this. It's going to be real. And then what we'll do is we're going to format those. So this is going to be, I'm going to put the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on here, +1. Okay. And then I'm going to bring that over here like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, equals this, +1. But I'm going to format them differently, +1. So what I'm going to do is basically each day of the week here. So these I'm going to format as like the month, the day. So let's go ahead and format those, and then I want the day number up. It's kind of a nice way to show that. So what do I want here? I want something like basically like what I want this, but I don't want to show the date. So I'm going to get out of that, and I just want to show the month, the day, and the year. So get rid of that and click OK. That's what I want to show, and I'll center that. And then I want to show the day here. So in this case, again, center that. And this I'm going to format, and to show the day we just need to use 4 Ds. So we'll go into the custom and we can type out DD. Okay, that's what I want to have, Monday. So that's what I'd like to have here. We're going to give it the same kind of format here, basically the same fade as we did above. So we'll fill effects, format them basically as we did, just a little bit of a fade like we did with this, using the same color scheme that we did. And I'll bring this down to this so we get a nice color here. And then of course we're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to create this. Then we'll put some borders around it so I can just fill it with this color. Yeah, that looks nice. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And put some borders around here. Great, we'll just put some same color that we're going to use, the same color that we're using, which is this dark color here. And then we'll use it all the way around here and then through here. Okay, good. Now that's what I like to hear, but we don't need actually this border here. I don't need the middle one. Okay, that's good enough right there. Okay, so that gives us an idea of exactly the fade that I'm looking for, and I'll use Control B, bold those. So I'm going to have the days here and the times here, but what are the times? Now I've started this a little bit to help us move along, and I've given it some starting times. So let's just show you what I have here for the admin and settings. This, I want a start time, and I want the user to be able to choose the start time from a drop-down list. And we can have a drop-down list which we can create, but I'll put that drop-down list will be something called times. And we're going to make that, so that'll be here on the schedule time. So what is our start time? And we have intervals. I want different intervals, so we can choose the intervals. We have task categories and we have colors. We're going to be able to choose the priority, which is nice, the status, pending, scheduled, and then intervals is really nice. So I'm going to go through every step of this, but it gives you an idea of what we can choose from. And so let's just go back and let's make this equals, and I've created some named ranges. Let's go over that so we know where we're starting from, just to help things, because these videos are long enough as it is. So let's take a look at that. I've created something called duration, and if we set that, that's going to be all the duration up to the duration, so you can have all those durations of your tasks up to 8 hours of a duration. You can create more. We have interval. What is the interval? The interval is a decimal based on a time, and I'll show you how we get to that in just a moment. We have a priority. Of course, that's the drop down list that's located right here. When we tab over, we see that's the priority. We have a start time. A start time is going to be based here. We have statuses. Statuses are going to be based on right here. And then we have a task ID, task number, and task status. So let's go over those with you in just a bit. So let's start out with the task. Let's see, how do we get this interval? Now, let's take a look at what one day is. One day means one. In Excel, one day is considered the number one. Okay, so what would 1 hour be? 1 divided by 24. So 1 hour in decimal form is 0.04116. Okay, great. So what is a half an hour? Well, if a half an hour would be divided by 2 again. So if then a half an hour would be 0.20. So if you keep doing those decimals, you're going to get this, and this is how we get our 5 minute, our 10 minute. So all we do, for example, 5 minutes is 1 day divided by 24 divided by 12. 10 minutes divided by 6, and so you see how we get these decimals. Now it's really important, because if I'm going to increment on our times, I need to know what this interval is. And so what I did is I chose from a drop down list, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So if we have, which is this list right here, so what I want to do is I want to figure out the interval based on that selection. So if they select 10, right, I want this interval 0.006994 to be based on this, because that's going to help us get our intervals for our time. So let me show you how that would work. So all we need to do is, this has been labeled start time. So in our schedule, I'm going to change this. I'm going to call this equal start time. Okay, great. So now we have 0.0033, which is what we want. Of course, we want it formatted in time. So let's do that. Let's go down to, let's just say D100, D100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to format every single cell between D100 and all the way up. I want those all formatted on time. So I'm going to hold down the shift, and then I'm going to format those. So I'm going to go into the home and then custom, and I want time, but not everything, because that'll include seconds. So let me just update that to the time that I'm looking for. And I'm going to choose this time, 1:30 p.m. You can choose whatever format you want. So you see now when we go back, we see it's formatted to 8 a.m. and that's what I want here. I've got this in 85 zoom. Let me zoom it up a little bit so you can see it's a little too small. Okay, so now we have that. We understand that. So 8. So now what do I want to do? What's the next increment? Do I want 8:05, 8:10, 8:15? Well, it all depends on the increment, right? It all depends on what this interval is. Because if they choose 15 minutes, this is going to change. So what we do is we call this interval. I've given this a name called interval. So all we have to do is go into our schedule and say equals this 8 a.m. plus the interval. Interval, right here. That's the one we want. That's all we need. That's how we get 8:15. So now all I need to do is pretty much drag that down, drop it right down, but that's only part of it. Now, here's what I want to do. Basically, if we drag that all the way down, and I'll show you one of the issues and how we're going to fix it. Let's bring it down to 96 or what have we here. That's fine. It looks good and all. Brings it down all the way to full day. I really don't want it to bleed into the next day, and I don't want it also to bleed in, especially more than 24 hours. So if I change this to like 30 minutes, And we go back into the schedule, you see now it's all the way to 5:30 a.m. the next day, and I really don't want that. It goes from 8:30 a.m. And so if I change this back to, let's say, even 1 hour, you see it's going to bleed into multiple days now, and so that's going to create real problems for us. So we really don't want that. So how do we avoid that? Well, let me show you how. All we need to do is pretty much add in a formula here that's going to help prevent us. So the first thing I'll do is I'll copy this, and then what I'm going to say is if, and then D5 plus the interval is greater than 1, which means a full day, then what I want to do is just show empty. Otherwise, show the D5 plus interval. Okay, so let's see what that, now that's not complete yet. It's still going to create us a problem, but I'll show you how to fix that. So when I double click and bring that all the way down, that creates a space when it's after the day, but then we get this value here for anything else. So to fix that, all we need to do is check the cell below. So again, let's run another if statement. If the cell above, I should say, cell above is blank, is equal to blank, then show a blank cell, then blank cell, comma, blank. Otherwise, continue on with our formula. And the parentheses. Okay, now let's drop this down and see how that looks. Okay, that's blank. That's going to show all the way down to 96. That's what I want. The blank cell for 30. Perfect. That's what I want. All right, let's finish up this and this formatting here. So I'm going to go all the way down here, and then I'm going to format. I'll just go all the way to 100 or so, and then I want to just give it a little bit of a format. So I'm going to format the cells. I'll use the double line on the bottom. I'll use this darker color here, and the double line on the left, a single on the top, left and bottom, and in the middle I'll use a dotted line. And that can give us a nice look and feel. That's what I want. Okay, so what else do we need? We need some icons and pictures in there. So let's add those. I'm going to insert some pictures. And basically I want to add all of these and this one, but not this one. I'll show you those save and cancel buttons, how we use those later. So pretty much all of these. And now let's set it to a specific height, like 0.2. And that's fine there, except for one of them I'm going to make it a little bit larger. That's going to be our icon for the application. We're going to use that. That's this one right here. So I'm going to make this one a little bit larger. So now that we have that, we can add some more buttons. I want to have previous and next week buttons so the user can easily select between those. So let's put it out here. And then we'll call this next week. I'm going to give it a look. Let's just say next week. And then bring it out a little bit. And something a little bit nicer so that they can choose. And I'm going to format this because I don't want the spacing there, and then we'll duplicate it for that. So we'll go into the text box here, and I don't need 0.02 on the left, and then I don't need any top or bottom. Okay, so we've got that, and let's just bring it down here a little bit, and then we can reduce it. That way we can reduce the size, and I can center that here all the way. Okay, I like the looks of that, and go ahead and put some shape effects in. I'll use this here, and that's good for the next week, and then I'll duplicate that using Control D, and I'll put in previous week. And then all I'm going to do is rotate that, and then I'm going to flip it horizontally. Okay, so we have previous and next week, align them in the center, and so those are going to help us navigate, so we can put that there. Okay, so what other buttons do we need? I just need really two buttons. I need to be able to update a task, and I need to be able to add a task. So let's insert some buttons here, and we'll create those buttons. So they're going to put them right up here. First thing, we'll call this update task, and then I'll right justify that and center it so that it looks nice. And then again, give it the same look and feel as the buttons we have before, and which is this one. And then I'm going to use this icon here, this one here, and then I'll bring that to the front here. Okay, and I'll do the same for the rest of these. I'll bring these all to the front. We'll duplicate this button first before we do that, and then we're going to bring this one, and then I'll basically want to add a task. So have a button that's going to add the task. So we can call this add task. Let's get out of this. And we'll call this add task. Just two buttons. It's going to be quite simple. Add task. Okay, so perfect. And that's all we need for that. I'll make this button a little bit shorter. I think 0.8 should be fine for that. 0.95. And then just an icon for this, something simple. Now we have add task. And again, we always want to group and hold Control. So I'm going to align it. Then I'm going to group it. Remember, this is a quick access toolbar here. You can click more commands if you want to create any yourself. Just select all commands, and then you can drag anything over here. You can add anything over you want to create your own. Okay, so we have add a task and we have update task. Again, let's center that and group it. And And okay, so we have update task and add task. Those are the buttons that we're going to use for now, and those are fine. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger, a little bit on the height, 0.28, just so they stand out a little bit more because we're going to use them frequently. We have all the days, we have the scheduled time. Let's format this one so that it looks the same as what we have everything else. And we believe we use this color, we use the fill effects of this color, and then this color. Okay, so that's the same colors we used on the other, so everything is nice. It looks the same as everything else. Nice. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Well, what I want to do is I want to have, basically I want to create shapes, and those shapes are going to make up my tasks. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we want to do is we need to keep track of what shape we're on, so that's important. So I'm going to put something in here called selected task. I want to know what the task is, so the name of that task is going to go here. And we have our tasks. I've got some data here, and this is going to keep track of our tasks. So we have a task ID, which is going to include the word task and then a number. We have a task number that's going to be unique. We're going to show you how to combine those. Task name, a description, a category that we're going to be able to assign. A priority, a scheduled date, scheduled time, a duration, and then the status. So that's going to help us. So basically, anything with a pending status, I want to put in this here. Everything that's pending, I want to go here, and I just want to have it the same height as the row. And then I want to drag it into here and then have it expand based on the duration. So for example, if it's 1 hour, and then I'm going to have it basically have 4 different, if we're at, what are we at, 30 now? Let's go to 15. I like 15 better for our purposes. Okay, so, but either way, both will work just fine. So I want to have that here. So we also need to know the task row, and I'll put that here. That's the row on our database in sheet 3, task row. So we need to know that. I also want to know the next task number, the next task. How do we know the next task? That's really it. That's all I need to know. The next task is going to be based on this, So I've created some named range. Remember, we said there were 3 more named ranges that we didn't go into. So let's go into them now. Those are task ID. If we tab over here, we see that's the task ID. That's a dynamic named range using offset, something we've been over many times before. If you haven't seen my video, it's just using offset. It's a great way. All right, next up, task number, again using offset. So that means that's going to grow. And of course, we have task status. Task status is all the way over here. Okay, so the last row. So we have those named ranges. That's going to help us out. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get the next task number. In this case, it's 119. How do I do that? Okay, so let's take a look at this. The next task number equals, we're going to use the max formula. But I always want to use if error, just in case there's an error. If error, max, what is their max? Task number, actually. Task number. So that's the max, but I don't just want the max, I want the next one. So +1 is going to get us the next one. But what if there's an error? There's an error if there's no data, right? So if there's no data, why don't we set the task number initial, which we'll put as 100. Okay, so now we have that. Now we have our complete. So now the next task is 119, and that's just what I want. And if for some reason we create one and we put in 120 here, the next task is automatically going to go to, it's based on this number, so I have to fill in a text on this too as well. It's based on 121, okay? So why is that? Why didn't it change? Why didn't it change? Because our counting is based on this row here. Our count is based on this row. Our column is here, but our count is based on the number of rows with text in this column here. So as soon as I add a text here, it's going to change to 121. So that's how we use it to get. Now there's a lot of you questions have asked me, well, my ID numbers combine numbers and letters. How do I get the max? Well, this is how you do it. You take one column with only unique numbers, and then you combine them using VBA or using formulas. You can combine them. That's how you'll do it. Okay, so we have that. Let's color these a little bit differently so that they stand out. We know that's all we really have to do. It's quite simple for our purposes here. So I just need the task row and the selected task. Task row is going to be also a formula. What is that? Well, that's going to be using a match. All we need is a match. So what do I want to know, I want to look for task ID, and I want to know what row is it in. So let's take a look at that. If we use match, let's say our selected task here, let's just put in one in for now. It's called task 101. Task 101. We know that task 101 is located on row 4. So we're going to use a match for that. Equals match. What are we matching? We're going to look up selected task. And what's the array? The array is task ID 0. We want an exact match. And then +3. Why +3? Because the first one's on row 1. Right? The first one is on row the first one is on row 4 here. So we want to add 3, right? If we just return if we don't add 3, it's just going to return 1. We don't want 1. Let's put that to left. This color is a little bit too dark for us to see it clearly, because I want just a light color. These colors are new to me, so that was nuts. Use something light. Okay, so that's better. So that's all we need. That's all we need. It's a really easy admin on this one. So we have the selected task. Now the idea is, as soon as I select a task, a shape, I want that name to appear right here in B. So the best way to do that is to create a shape. I want to create a sample shape. So let's do that. It can be really anything. It doesn't matter. It's a square shape, and I'm just going to call it here something like that. I don't need to know anything else. We'll take the outline out. I just want to put a light outliner. Let's just do a small outline here. Okay, I'm just going to call this. I'm going to give this shape a call. I'm going to call it sample, because this is what we're going to do. So basically what I want to do, the idea is this. I want to duplicate it using VBA, Control D. Then I want to give this one a name, and then I want to give it a size based on this. What is the name of this? It's going to be whatever is task 118, task 119. So it's going to be based on that. It's going to be, the name is going to be based on this ID. That's how we can tell each appointment differently, or each task differently. We assign it a name. We'll do all that with VBA. What else do I want to do? Well, let's just say I have a task here. Let's just create a sample task, right? Let's say I have a task here, and let's just call this meeting with Bob. Okay, and so let's say now this meeting Bob. Now if I click on this, what I want to do is I want to put that name, and I want to put it right here in B2. I want to know what task we've done it, and I can do that with VBA. But what else do I want? I want to be able to edit this. Now, what do you mean edit it? I want to be able to change things. I want to be able to change the name, the description, or create a new one. So we can do that with a pop-up form. Some people say I don't use user forms too much. I don't, you're right, but in this instance it works perfectly. Now to save time, I have created a user form for this, because I create user forms extremely slowly. So this video would be 3 hours, so I've done just that. I created a user form already, and because it's a great way to save time. We've done user forms, but I'll walk you through every step of this user form, so no worries on that. So basically what I want to do is I want to have this user form pop up. If it's an existing task, all the information is going to appear. Task name, the task status, all the information from the table that we have created here is going to appear. And so basically all we need to know is the row of the task. All we need to know is the row, and of course the row is going to be right here. So once we know the row, I can take all the information from row 4 and bring it into that pop-up form. So we're going to do that. But how do I know it? So how do I bring it up? So the first thing we want to do is I want to create a button, an edit button, and I want to put it really close to this, whichever one we select, and I want to have that edit button like right about here, and then I want to have a delete button like right about here. So that means as soon as we select it, the edit button pops up. We click the edit button and that form pops up. So let's do just that. In fact, I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to create a button out of it, but something a little bit different. So in fact, I'll just do format, and then just give it a different color, something like this. And so give it a size. I want it a little bit bigger than this. So let's push this in back and see what size we want. I'm going to bring it, send it to the back, and a little bit smaller. So we'll go something like 0.25 and then 0.25. Make sure it's square. We're going to do the same thing with that. Okay, that's kind of nice. That gives us a nice. So I'm going to take these two shapes, and then I'm going to center them both. Then I'm going to group them, and then I'm just going to call this edit button. And then I'm going to do the same thing. In fact, I should have duplicated. I'm going to Control C, Control V. And then okay, so now I've copied it. Now I want the same one for this, but I'm going to bring this to the front, format and bring to the front. And then we're going to do the same exact thing here, and then just give it a name. So I'm going to use my selection. It's easier. And I'm going to select both of those, center them vertically and horizontally, group them, give it a name. So we're going to call this delete button. I also want to be able to delete an appointment. Okay, nice. So now I've got both of these, but basically what I want to do is I want to bring both of them up at the same time. So let's zoom in here, and what I want to do is I want to put both of these nice and close together, and so they both appear at the same time as soon as we select on a shape. So now that I've got them centered, now I'm going to hold down the Control, and I'm going to group both of them together, and I'm going to call this edit group. Okay, so basically when I select a task, I want that edit group to appear to the right of the task no matter what task we selected. When I click on this, I want the pop-up form to come up so I can edit the task very easily. So that's just what we're going to do. Okay, so you're starting to get an idea. And the good thing is what I want to do is I want to be able to drag this task here and have it automatically scheduled, or drag it here and have it automatically scheduled. So that's just what we're going to do. Let's format this a little bit better than we already have. I want to give it a little bit better look. All we need to do is format the columns and the rows here. We'll go all the way down to something like here, and then format those, and then put it a border. I'll just put a border all the way around, and then just probably a little bit lighter of it, and then maybe a dotted line in the center. Okay, there we go. And the only other thing that I want to do is I don't want to have it perfectly solid. I want a little bit of a transparency. It's kind of nice. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this one our sample, because that's the one we're going to be creating from. I'm going to give it a fill, and I'm going to give it just a not 100% fill. So I'm going to go into more fill colors, and I'm going to change this to 15. That way it's a little bit transparent, it's a little bit. And the reason we're doing that is because I want to be able to see those lines underneath a little bit. It's kind of nice, right? Okay, so now the colors are going to be completely dynamic. That's going to change through VBA. What are the colors of these? They're going to be based on whatever color you set here. So if we set a meeting color blue, it's going to show up blue. If we set a project, research, personal, whatever colors we set here are automatically going to change. We got 3 greens. We don't really need that. Okay, so we can change it. Let's go a little bit darker color so that we can use okay, I like that. All right, so basically the colors can be completely dynamic too. So that's why it's going to be really great. So what do we have? So we have these. So as we drag it, we can schedule it. All I want to do is drag it. Now there's no event in Excel that's going to run as soon as I move this. No event. So what I can do is I can move it and then just click update task and it'll update it right away. So let's do that. Let me show you just how we're going to do that. So again, here's what I want to do. I want to duplicate this shape for every new task. I want to duplicate this and then create a task based on that. So for example, let's just show you what we might want to do. Let's call this task 101. Okay, since we have a task already associated with that. So when I click here, the first thing I want to do is I want that name to show up right in B2. So how do we do that? Okay, let's go into the VBA and just see how we start with that. So we're going to call that selected task, and we're going to select that task, and that's all we're going to run a macro on selection. So let's do that inside the VBA editor in the developers, and then go into the Visual Basic. And then we're going to go, and I've created just some modules here, but there's nothing here, so we're going to do all that. And so we have something called select task, and that's the one I really want to focus on right now. So let's write some code so we can do that. So we can place that name, dimension the task ID as a string. Okay, we're going to focus on sheet 2. Sheet 2 is our schedule, so with sheet 2. And then what do I want to do? Again, range B2, that's the one we want the task, dot range. B2 is the one where we're going to have the name. So all we need to do is B2 equals application.caller. Okay, that's all I need to do. It's very, very simple. And the task, next up, what I want to do is I want to set the task ID, again, equal to B2. So we can put that in a variable. Equals, what does it equal? Just whatever's in B2 right here. So that way we can set it up. Now we have the task ID because we need to work with that. So once we have it in a variable, we can work with it. What do we need to do with it? Again, I want to show something up. What do I want to do? I want to take this group here and I want it to display it right here, right on the side, right here. So how do I do that? Well, that's what we're going to do. So with dot shapes, edit group, remember that's the group that we just created, group. We're going to do some few things. I'm going to set a left position. Dot left. We want to set that left position. What is it? It's going to be based on the left position of this. It's going to be based on left plus the width of this, right? So if this is the left position right here. This is the left. So if I put it at the left position, it's going to be covered up. But I don't want it on the left position. I want it on the left position plus whatever the width of this shape is. So that's all we need to do. The left is going to be equal to sheet 2. Why do I need to do sheet 2 again? Because right now we're inside with shapes, right? So if we're inside with shapes, we need to again define sheet 2. So sheet 2, shapes, what shape is that? Task ID. We've already named the shape, right? We already know it. Dot left, what, and not just the left, but plus something, right? Plus the width. Plus the width. Sheet 2 again. The same shape that we don't need to retype it. The same shape, but this time it's the width of that. Plus the width. Dot width. That's going to give us the left position, but it's not going to do the top position. What is the top position? It means where do I want this to display on the top? Do I want to display down here, up here? I want it to display exactly the same top position as the current shape. So all we need to do is set the top position the same. Dot top is equal to, again, the same shape, but plus the top position. That's what, and then of course the last thing we want to do is we want to make sure the edit group is visible, because we're going to hide it. Usually it's going to be hidden, but when I select a shape, I want it visible. So dot visible equals MSO true. And another thing that was kind of important is the Z order. And why is the Z order important? And I'll show you why. Let's just duplicate this. If I have another appointment right next, I don't want it hidden. So how can I automatically move this group all the way on top? Well, we can change the Z order of that. Z order will bring it up on top. So how does that? It is dot Z order equals MSO bring to the front. MSO bring, not equals, bring to the front. That's all. That's going to bring it right up to the front. And that's all we have to do. So good. So now we have that. And again, one more thing. So now we have a macro called select task. And I'm going to assign this macro also to our sample shape. Because why? Because every shape that we duplicate, it's going to automatically assign it. So let me show you that. So I'm going to right click, assign the macro, and I'm going to paste in the select shape right here, select task here. So now when we select it, now when we duplicate this, Control D, although we'll do it in VBA, now if we look, also the macro is assigned to this. You can see it's a macro assigned to this. And so I'm just going to cut that out. We won't worry about that. I'm going to assign the same macro over here, but normally it's always going to be, I'll assign it to both of them just so we can get assigned macro. But normally VBA will take care of assigning macro because we're going to duplicate it. So again, all we need to do is click select task. So now when we select task, you see it appointed there, and select, you see now it appears. That's all we want. So if I move this over and I select it again, it's always going to appear. Okay, great. We can delete this one now. We don't want shapes with the same name. Okay, so basically what I want to do is when I click on this button here, I want the user form to appear. So what are these buttons here for? Well, these are actually for, I wanted to show you how I can create buttons. So let's go into the view. We don't need these grid lines. Now let's take a look at this. I want to show you that before I get rid of those buttons. I created these two buttons, save and cancel. But those are pictures. Okay? If you haven't seen that before, those are pictures. So how do I create a button that looks like that? Well, I created in Excel and I can do that. So for example, if I take this button and I copy this button and then I bring it down here and I just call it save, and then I bring this icon over here and then I bring it to the front, and then all we have to do is then reduce this button here, I'm going to take a screenshot of that button. So I'm going to zoom in, and if I want to make it, this button's not the best button, but you get the idea. I'm going to take a screenshot using my Snagit software. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the zoom out, and then I'm just going to crop it right everywhere, and then I'm going to save it as a JPG, not a PNG, a JPG. So that's how I do it. That's how I create those buttons, and then it becomes a picture. So once it is a picture, we can then go into our user form right here, and then I can insert a picture. So for example, if I want to insert a picture here, insert picture, I'll just draw a picture here on our user form. Then all I'm going to do is click on the picture here. Then I'm going to browse for the picture, and I'm going to browse to a previously saved picture like this, and I'm going to click open. That's all I have to do. And then I'll set the background to transparent, and I'll shrink it up a little bit. And now we have a nice button, and all we need to do is on the click event. So we click on it, and now all we need to do is when we click on it, we can just write anything in here we want. And then when we run our form and click on it, that's all we have to do. So it's very simple. I just wanted to show that to you so you could see it. We don't need to run the macro because there's so much more we need to do with it. Okay, so that is how I create buttons. So I wanted to show you that. That's why I brought how I created those buttons, since I've already created the form for us. Okay, because we've got a lot of training to do, so I have to speed things up sometimes before, otherwise you'll fall asleep on me. We don't want that. All right, so what do we want? Now that we have the macro that's going to click on it, what do we want to do with it? So if I'm going to work on this, I need to select it like this, right? So I can have VBA do it, and that way the user can work with it. They can move it around. So all we need to do is add a little bit inside our macro. All I need to do is the last thing is here, dot shapes, again, task ID dot select. that's going to select the shape. That's exactly what I want. So now when I click on it, it's going to select it. That gives the user the ability to move it and click update. Now what I want to do is when the user drags a task here, somewhere in here, I want to line this up. I want to put it, basically what I want to do is I want to size it right here, and I want to line them all up. So I want to put any unscheduled here, 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 and all the way down. So that's what I want to do if they drag it here. But what if they drag it inside a cell in the schedule? If they drag it anywhere here, what I want to do through VBA automatically is size it accordingly based on the width of the column and then based on the length of the appointment. So for example, if it's exactly 1 hour, I want to drag it exactly, in this case it would be 4 hours, so I want to drag it exactly 4 columns, so they can still schedule at 9 a.m. So it would be 4 rows here, four rows. So that's what I want to do. And remember, it's dynamic, meaning so if they change this, I want to make sure that the meeting updates automatically. So it's a little bit tricky, but it's extremely fun and exciting because we get to create a dynamic schedule, and the appointments are all dynamic based on the intervals. So if we change this to 8:05 or 8:10 or 5 or 10 or 15 or 30-minute intervals, I want all the appointments to update automatically as soon as we refresh it. So it's a really great challenge. So I want to show you how we're going to do that. So again, we're going to create a macro for base. We're going to check the location of it. If it's here, we're going to add it to the unscheduled. If it's here or anywhere inside the schedule, we're going to set it automatically. We're going to do that based on this button here. So update task. So I'm going to create a macro called update task or task update, and it's going to automatically set that. So let's do that right now. And of course, it's always going to be based on this name, task 101. And that's the name, the shape name that's always going to be based here. Anytime we select it, it's going to put that automatically inside here. So for example, if we were to select sample, it's going to put sample in here. If we select this one, task 101, of course, it has to be a name that's within our scheduled tasks. Okay, so let's do that. Let's write the macro now that's going to set that appointment automatically based on its current location. So let's get back into the VBA and write that. And we're going to get into detail on this and how I created this and how we're going to do that too. So let's focus on one thing at a time. So we're going to focus on task mask here, actually task update. So we have selected task, we did that. Now we're going to work on task update. Remember, our goal is 2 things, either have the appointment as unscheduled or have it scheduled and set it. So let's do that. So again, we're going to dimension the task ID as a string. We always need to know that task ID because that's the shape name as well, as a string. And we also want to know the task text. I want to update the text inside that task automatically. So task text as string. We need that. I also need to know the scheduled row is long. We want to know what the row is, right? That row is very important. Whatever row, it's going to be row 5, 6, or 7, and I also need the column too, so we need those into variables. So we're going to dimension the schedule row as long and the schedule column as long. And I want to know the task row. That's really important, right? We want to know, because if we're going to get details, I need to know what row the task is on, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So we need to know that because I need to pull the details, task name, and possibly set the schedule date, set the schedule time, because we need to update the schedule date and the schedule time based on where they drag and drop it inside the schedule. Also very important, so we're going to pull that up. We need that. So let's put in the task row as long. And also I need to know the pending row, right? If we have 5 appointments that are pending, it's either going to be row 6, 7, 8, 9. So I need to know the pending. How are we going to determine the pending row? What I'm going to do is I'm going to count all the pending, right? So if there's 1, 2, 3 pending, we know we need to drop it down. I'm going to probably put it right down here in 8 because the first one is going to be 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to put it in 8. So we need to know the pending row as well. So we'll put that into a variable. I'm going to call that pending row as long. Okay, I also want to know the duration rows, so we're going to put in, that's the duration. We can close this, we don't need this. The duration, so we're going to mention duration rows as long, right? If the appointment's, again, like I said, 1 hour long and we're at 15-minute intervals, we need to know that it's going to be 4 rows for that. So the duration rows is long. What else? I want the scheduled time to mention the scheduled time as a date, and I also need to know the scheduled date, so the scheduled date as a date. Okay. And what else do we need? That's pretty much it for the dimensions. So let's continue on. We're ready. We're going to focus on sheet 2. So with sheet 2. Sheet 2 is our schedule sheet, so that's the one we're going to be taking care of. The first thing I want to make sure of before we do anything else, right, we need to make sure that B2 has a value. Without this, we can't do anything. So that's the first thing we need to make sure. We need to make sure there's actual shape or a task that we've selected. So again, if .range B2 is empty, then what are we going to do? We're just going to let the user know with a message box. Then message box, please select a task to update. We're updating a task. Either it's going to be scheduled or it's going to be unscheduled. So, and then exit sub. Nothing we can do unless we have a task. Okay, so we've got that covered. Now we know that we need a task. So now what can we do? Well, we can define the task. First of all, I'm going to check for unscheduled items. So let's write that down. Check for unscheduled items. If the user is trying to unschedule it, we need to know that for sure. Task, let's call it tasks. And then, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define that task ID is going to be equal to, of course, B2, right? And that is our task ID. Obviously, it's kind of common sense. Task ID. Okay, so we have the task ID now, and I also want to know the task row. That's very important. It's always got to have a row, so that's going to be in B3. Okay, so that's the task row in the database, right? Task database row. We need to know those things because they need to be updated and we need to look up information. So the first thing what I want to do is I'm going to determine, remember we're going to determine two things. Has it been unscheduled or has it been scheduled? So the best way to do that is to check the left position. For example, what I want to do is I want to check the left position. Is it to the left of D? Here's D. Is it to the left or is it to the right of it? So that's the first thing we can check. We can check that through this. If dot shapes, right, we're focused on shapes, task ID, that's the name, right, dot left, the left position is less, right, less than the left position of, let's just say D1. We can use D, we have to use D, we could use any number of dot range. D, we'll just use 1. Remember, we could use any 1, 2, 3. It doesn't really matter because they all have the same left position. Not the value, but the left position, dot left. The left of that cell. And that way it's going to work regardless on any computer. So then, again, let's look at if the left position of the shape is less than the left position of D1. Just so we can review. This would be less. This would not be less. This would not be less too. Right here would not be less. But this would be more. This would be less. So anything that they move over here automatically is going to consider. So if they move an appointment over here, the left position, which is the top left corner of this shape, the top left corner is actually less than the left position of D. So in that case, it's going to be unscheduled. So that's our defining. So that's, let's just put that unscheduled. So we know. And then we'll put an else down here, and then we'll call that schedule. Okay, so what are we, now that we know we've unscheduled it, what do we want to do? The first thing what I want to do is I want to mark it as pending. It's now pending. So I'm going to update that task right here. We know the row. We've already defined the row. And so we also know the stat. We also know the column. It's going to be here, J, right? So all I want to do is take that appointment and make it pending. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Sheet 3 dot range J, right, we know it's J, and what is it? The task row. We've already defined it up there. Task row dot value equals pending. Now you could make this dynamic. What I mean by that, you could say, you can make it this one right here. So you could call it this. You could say I4 and then whatever you change in I4, but then you need to make sure that's consistent throughout the application, okay? So if you want to refer to whatever's right here, call this your pending I4, you can do that, just make it dynamic, but make sure instead of writing pending inside your code, you write sheet 1 I4, okay? You can do that as well. We're just going to keep it as pending. It's a little bit more clear inside the code, but you understand that you can make that dynamic based on whatever you change. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is set that appointment to pending. Set the task to pending status. Important. Next, what do we want to do? I want to determine what row. I want to take this task right here and I want to put it somewhere here. Put it somewhere here, like let's say row 7, but we don't know how many. And then I also want to reduce it to about 1 row size. So I want to do something like that, but I don't know what row. I don't know how far. I can't overlap them. So what's the best way to do? Well, the best way to do is count this. Let's say 1, 2, 3. I want to count all of the pending, including the one we just added, and then I'm going to place it. So for example, if it's 1, to, I guess, 3 of them, right? And so I'm going to place it in, let's see, not 5, 6, and I'm going to place it in row 7. That's what I want to place it. That way the one previous pending are still here. They don't get overlapped. So the best way to do that is just use the count if. So let's use count if. It's the same thing that if we do in the application. For example, it's the same exact thing if we do this. If I do equals count if, what are we counting? We're going to count this basically. And then what I'm going to say based on only pending. So it's the same thing, but we're going to do it inside VBA. And it's 3. So that's all I want. I want to do exactly that, but I want to do it inside VBA. So how do we do that? Application worksheet function, and I use AutoHotkey to automate that. AutoHotkey is a free software. Application worksheet function, count if, right? We're going to do the same exact thing as we did. And what's the range that we're counting? Well, again, we've defined that range already. So we know that we can use sheet 3 dot range task status. Let's double check that. Always good to double check our, and if you're not sure and you want to make 100% sure, a good way to do that is go into formulas, name manager, task, we have task status here. Just edit it and copy that, Control C. That's going to ensure that you have the absolute right. Tab over there, it's always a good idea to make sure that yes, it's dynamic and it's going to increase as, so we have the right range. We know that. We have the right range, and now, if, of course, just to make sure, we copy and we paste what we just put in there to make 100% sure we have the right range. That way it keeps us from getting bugs. Okay, so the task status, and what is it? We're looking for only pending. Pending, make sure you type that in right. Again, if you want to make this dynamic, set it over to sheet 1 and then that specific cell where you have it. Okay, so that's going to count us, but I want to put that inside a variable. So how do we do that? Let's add this. I want to say pending row is equal to application the count plus what? Plus, well, what are we going to say? If we count again, so I want to start here, plus 5. So if we count 1, I want to place it, actually, we'll do plus 4. I want to place it right here in 5. So we're going to add 4 to that. Plus 4. That's going to give us our pending row, the count plus 4, because our starting row is on 5. Okay, so now that we have that, we're ready to set the shape. What I want to do now is I want to move the shape over. For example, let's say we've dragged it up here, or something like that. Let's say we've dragged it over here and we have the appointment here, but I want to now set the width, I want to set the height, and I want to set the position. I need to set all of that. So we can do that with the following lines of code. With dot shapes, again, we're focused on that shape, task ID, and we're going to do some things with the shape. The first thing what I want to do is I want to set the text. What is the text? In this text, I want just the minimum text. Minimum, what is the minimum text? All I want, obviously I don't want the time or the date. I just want the text name. We can find that in C in the task row here. So that's all we need to do, the text. So we have the text dot text frame. It's actually text frame 2 dot text range and dot text. That's going to be the text of that shape. Equals sheet 3, that's where our data is, dot range. Again, C is the column, that's where our name is, and the task row dot value. That is going to get us our task name. And that's what I want. That's all I want as far as the text. There's not much room to fit anything else in this instance. When it's larger, when it's on the schedule, we can put in the description. Okay, so let's focus on the height. What is the height of that shape? Right? I only want, in this instance, I only want the height of a specific row. I only want the height of the row. I don't want anything else. I don't want it to be too big in this, right? Because it'll take up too much space. All I need is just pretty much the height of a single row. That's all I really want. And in fact, let's move this to the top. In fact, you see how it's kind of, let's take our sample here and make sure we have the top. Okay, we have, but I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to format, because I'm formatting the sample, size and properties, and I just want to make sure that there's too much room at the top. So I'm going to go to the top. I'm just going to put this at 0.02, 0.02. And then the left, again, we don't need so much space point. I'm using the sample because the sample is what we're going to be creating everything else on. And I guess I could have done the top one. Let's just double check that. Let's right click this one too. Format the shape. And then go to text box again. Left 0.02, 0.02. And that's it, because we don't have a lot of space, so I think that's important. So now we get the whole, that's the way I want it. So we've done the sample, so every shape that we create after this will have those same dimensions. And that's why it's really nice to have a sample shape that we're going to use, so we don't have to create it and we don't have to set so much in VBA, because our sample is pretty much set already with all the right dimensions. Okay, so that's exactly the way I want it. So how do we get that done? Let's focus on the height, and that's what we're on. So what's the height? Is it going to equal sheet 2 dot range we can just use the height of another cell. All we need to do, so let's just say this one, A3, or any of these cells, like we can use any cell. They're all the same. They're all 15.75, which is fine. So I'm just going to use the height of another cell, and that's going to match it. So you can set your height to anything you want. Let's just use A3 dot height. Okay, so that's the height of this cell. That'll be just fine. So we have the height, but let's focus on the left position now. The left, dot left. What is that left position? It's going to be equal to sheet 2. Remember, why we need sheet 2? Because we're on width shapes, right? Anytime we're on another width inside of a width, we need to make sure to define the shape, because this is we're focused on width shape. So we need to again define sheet 2 here. If we're outside of this width, if we're outside, we can use dot range or whatever based on the sheet. But when we're inside that width, we do need to define sheet 2 once again. So what's going to be based on? Dot cells. Why are we using dot cells? Because both the column and the row are dynamic. So what is the row? Pending row. We've already set the row. And what is the column? Well, we know that the column again is 3, right? It's C, column 3. So that's the row we're going to use. 3 is the column. Okay, so that's the left, and then dot left. Okay, so now we have the dot left. Now all we need is the top position. So dot top. What's the dot top position? Is going to be the same exact one. So all we need to do is just copy this and then put it down here, and then just change that to dot top. Okay, so we have the top, we have the height, and we do need the width. The width, what do I want the width of that? Remember, I want the width, I don't want it bigger or smaller, I just want it exactly the same as column C. I want that width same. So let's make that inside the VBA. The width is equal to, again, sheet 2. We can use any row for that, dot range C1, which is fine. Dot width. So we're going to use the width of the column. Width of the column. All right. I think that's going to work. Let's save our work and let's see how that works. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm just going to pretend that we have it here. And then let's say we have it here. We have the size, and user drags it here. Now I'm going to assign that. Let's move that over. We don't need that. You can use the full screen. Now I'm going to assign a macro to this. So I'm going to click assign macro, and we have the schedule. We're looking for task update here. Click OK and click OK. And now click this. It's already in the position I want it to be. Click update task. And that's perfect. That's just what I want. Now the reason is we have tasks that were in our data. So let's take that and let's put them all to scheduled. I just want to take them all to scheduled so it's in the right place. And then the last one too. So I'm making them all scheduled. We're going to do it one more time. So, because I really want it in that 5th position in the row 5. So bring it out again, do once again. Now move it over here. Click update task. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. So now if we have more tasks, it's going to add them below and below and below. All right. And you see if we look in that, we'll see that task 101 is now the status is pending and it's in the right place. Excellent. So that's what I have for unscheduled. And I guess we could probably also remove the scheduled date and time. But if you have let's say you have a tentative scheduled date and a tentative scheduled time, you might want to keep those in. That's up to you. Clearing these is up to you, right? So it's unscheduled, but you might want to keep the tentative there in the appointment. Something you may want to do. So now what I want to do, I've got the first part. Now if I drag this out to a date here, now I want to put it inside. I want to then assign this date, and I want to assign this time, and I want to then make it larger. And how large do I want to make it? Well, I want to make it large based on the duration of that task. How do we do that? Well, let's write the code to do that. Else, right, where else is the scheduled. So we're done with the unscheduled. Now we're going to focus on the scheduled task. So how do we do that? So we can do that with sheet 3. The first thing what I want to do is I want to set the appointment status to scheduled. So I'm going to take that in J, and that's in J. So we can do that with just a little bit of code. So I'm just going to copy the one we did before, which is set status to pending, and I'm just going to change that to copy that, and I'm just going to change it to scheduled. So change it to scheduled status, and then the same thing here, scheduled. So now it's going to change it to scheduled. So we've changed it in the database, scheduled. What else do we want to do? Okay, so now I need to determine what the location is and then set the data based on that location. So we can do that with this code here. The schedule column, right? Of course we need the row and the column. So what is the column? It's going to be equal, again, dot shapes We're based on the location of the current task ID. That's the task. And then dot top left cell. So that top left cell dot column. What is the column of that top left cell? For example, if I drag it here, in this case it's column G. So I want to know the column of the top left cell. What column is that in? So that's going to set the dot left. That's going to set the column inside a variable here. And we'll call that schedule column. And now I want to know the row. So what is the row? Schedule row is equal to pretty much the same thing, but in this case we're going to focus on the row, not the column. So again, we can copy that, paste it down here, and just mark that as row, dot row, and this would be the schedule row. So that's going to put the row and the column into variables of where it's located. I also want to know the schedule time. Now if we know the row, if I know the row is 5, how do I pull the time? Well, I know the time's in D. If I know the row is, if they've dragged it over to the row of, let's say, 13, I know D13 is 10 a.m. So all we have to do is extract it out of column D. So we can do that. The schedule time is equal to dot range D and the schedule row. Now we have the scheduled time. Same thing with date, but in reverse, right? Scheduled date, you can figure that out, equals, why are we using dot cells this time? Dot cells. We're using dot cells because the column is dynamic. In this case, the column is dynamic. So the schedule date would be cells. 4 is our row, and the column is the schedule column. Dot value. Again, let's take a look at that. We could use column 4 or column 3, either one. And we could use row 3 or row 4, actually. So again, if we know it, we know the column is G. In this case, column G is 6 and the row is 4. So what's in row 4, column 6? In this case, it is the date, January 1st. So we know the date because it's based on that location. So we can extract the date from that. So that would be the schedule date. Now I need to know the interval. I want to put that interval. In fact, we need to define that up here. Let's do that because there's one more thing I want to do. I want to define the interval. I think that's really important as double. That is the interval. Let's dimension that. Dimension SC interval as double. What is that? The schedule interval is this right here. I want to know, remember, this is it's called interval. I want to know that number, and that's important because I need to know if it's, I need to divide that interval by the length of it, the length of the appointment. What is it? What do I mean by that? If the duration is 1 hour and 30 minutes, and our interval is every 15 minutes in a decimal form, which is here, if all I have to do is divide that and determine that it's going to take up 6 different rows if it's based on 15 minutes. If it's based on 15 minutes, it's going to take up 6 different rows. So I can do that, but first I got to put that into a variable. So let's do that inside the code. So we can call it back down here, SC interval, schedule interval, is equal to what? It's equal to, we already have it defined, and we'll just call it interval. We can use brackets for that. That's going to define as long as you have a unique name. Again, you want to do that. Again, we call it interval. We have it right here. All we need to do is copy that just to make sure and put it inside our brackets. That's going to cover it as long as it's based on the entire workbook, which it is. Interval. Okay, so the schedule interval. We have that now, and it's double. Remember, it can't be long. It's got to be double because it's a fraction. So we've defined it as double up here, which is really important. We'll call that the schedule interval. And we don't want to put that in hard code in case you change the interval. It's very important. So we don't want that. Okay, so now that we have the interval defined in a dynamic and a variable, we can now update the length of it. So sheet 3 dot range G, I'm going to update the dates, right? So let's take a look. What do we want to do? I want to update the scheduled date, and I want to update the scheduled time based on where they have dragged it to, based on that. So we can do that because we've already have scheduled date and scheduled time automatically in here. So G and the task row dot value equals the scheduled date. Scheduled date. Okay, what next do we want to do? I also will now want to update the scheduled time. So again, this thing is going to be almost the same. So let's just update that, copy that, paste it in. This time it's going to be H is where our time is located, and this is going to be the scheduled time. So just change the variable here because we have it already set up. We've already got it defined. Okay, so we got the scheduled time, the scheduled date. What else do we need? Now I need the duration, so let's focus on that. The duration rows is equal to, we need to know the duration of it. What is the duration of it? The duration is set right here in the duration. So we've got an, so what is the duration? Basically, it's, again, like I said, it's going to be whatever's in here divided by the interval. So we can do that here. So again, it's dot range sheet 3, because our duration is located right there in column I, range I, and the task row, dot value. So that's our duration rows, but I need that in number of rows, not just the duration. So divided by our interval, and we can use that in brackets, or we can just say schedule interval, since we've already defined that interval, schedule interval as double. So now we have that. That's going to give us our duration rows. Just what that simple division. So now we know the number of rows. Okay, let's update the, now we're ready to update the task test. Here was just the task name under the test, but this time I want more information. What do I want inside this? Well, what I'd like to have is I'd like to have the time, then I'd like to have the name, and then I'd like to have the description, and I want the priority. We can put more in there. So again, I want the task name, I want the description, but first I want to put the time, the start time here, so it's clear. And I also want to put the priority. So I want all that inside our text of the shape. So how do we do that? Well, first we're going to put it inside a variable. We're going to call it task text. We've already defined it up here as a string. So we've got that covered here as a string right here, task test. So what is it going to be equal? It's going to be equal a combination of things. So we're going to format the time. Sheet 3 dot range H is the time, H, and the task row dot value. That's the time, but I don't want the time. It's going to provide it to me in a decimal format. I really want that formatted. Although it's formatted here, remember it's really inside Excel. It's really going to look like something like that, and I don't want that. I want it formatted. And what do I want to format it? Well, I want to format it something like whatever it is here. So let's go into number formats, and I want it something looking like H:MM. That's good enough for us. So that's the way I'm going to format it. So how do I make sure it's formatted also? I'm just going to wrap it in format, and then we're going to use comma. And what is the format that we want to use? H:MM. That's the format that I want to assign. Okay, so it starts with a time, and what else? And a space after that. I want a space and. All right, let's just copy this so we can automate that. And copy this. So what do I want after that? So I've got the time and it's formatted. Now what do I want? Now I want the name. So let's do an underscore. And what else? I want the name. Where's the name located? The name is located right here in C, and then I want the description. So let's do that. So the name is in C, so let's change that to C. And then what I want a brand new row. I want to automate the row. So how do we do that? We can use VBC LRF. So that's going to get us a new row, and that's automated through auto hotkey. Now what do I want? Now I want the description, and the description is located in column D. So that's the description. And what do I want next? So once I have the name, the description on a new row below, and now I want the priority. So we can do and colon priority, colon space, and I want the actual priority. Where's our priority located? It's located in column F. So now we have the actual priority. Let's put that in. And again, priority is column F. Okay, good. So again, let's review. We have the time formatted. We have the name located in column C. We have the description in D. And we have the priority. We have that all inside a text variable. And now we're ready. We have all the variables, we have the row, we have the column, we have the size, we have the text. So we're ready to format our shape and place our shape. So we can do that with dot shapes. And what shape? Again, task ID is our shape that we're focused on. And with, make sure we put that in if it's not automated. Okay, the left position. What is the left position? We know the left position is going to be equal to sheet 2 dot cells. Again, schedule row, schedule column. Pretty easy. We've already set that in variables. Dot left. What is the top position? Pretty much the same. So all we need to do is just copy this, and then I'll place the top position. So dot top is equal to sheet 2 and then dot top. That is our top position. Is the same as and now what do we want? Now I want the width, right? I want the width to make sure that we're positioned accordingly on that. I want the width of whatever column is. So we want the width to be exactly the same. How do we do that? Dot width equals, again, the same thing, but this time it's dot width, the width of the column. That's what I want to know. What about the height? The height's a little bit tricky because that's based on the duration. So let's put that in. Height is equal to the range. What is the range? The range is going to be based on multiple columns. So let's put that in. Our range is based on the first row and the first column of our schedule. So we're going to put that in, comma, what is the last range? Again, it's going to be the sheet 2 schedule row, schedule column, but the schedule rows is going to be plus the duration rows minus 1 because we need to subtract 1. So that is the range. Let's put in one more parentheses there. We got to close that off. Okay, so the height is going to be all of that dot height. And I'll walk you through that. It's a little bit confusing, so I want to walk you through that. Okay, so in our schedule here, if we have our first row, we have our last row, we know the duration rows. Let's say it's 4, and then we're adding it up, so it's going to be 6 plus 9 plus 4 minus 1, and that's going to get us our duration. So we know, remember our duration, if our duration is 1 hour, we've divided it by the interval of 15 minutes. That's going to get us 4. Right, so if we have an appointment that's 1 hour long, our duration is 15 minutes. We've already done the division. 1 hour minus 15 minutes is going to be 4. Right, so we have our first one, 6. So then 6 plus 4 is 10. Minus 1 is 9. That's going to get us our total duration. Now all we need to know is the range. So the height is going to be the range of the first one minus the range of the last one, which is 9. That's going to get us our height. That's all we have to do. So now we have the height set up. All we need to do now is set the text. What is it? Dot text frame 2 dot text range dot text. This is going to give us, we've already defined a variable, equals the task text. Okay, very good. We have all that, and now what we have to do, now what else do we need to do? Okay, so now we've done the position, we've sized and positioned, but I've got this little group here, this edit group. I need to hide that because once we've updated task, I want to make sure that that's hidden. We don't need that unless we actually select on something. Okay, so let's hide that first. So we're done with our and if. So basically we're going to hide it whether we've clicked on the pending or whether we've scheduled the task. We still need to hide our group, so we can do that. Let's get out of this. We're out of that end if now. Let's bring that down. So we're just focused on the sheet now. So dot shapes, edit group, dot visible equals MSO false, right? We're gonna hide the edit group. Hide edit group. It's a long training, but it's an important one because I want to show you how to work with these shapes. And then I want to just select something else. So let's like dot range C4. I just want to select something out of it. I don't want to select that shape anymore. So we can do that just by selecting another dot select. We can do that by selecting another cell. Okay, let's test that out. I think we're good. We'll check for bugs. Of course, before we run a macro, we're going to save our work. That's always important. And we already have it tagged here. So let's drag this over to here and then click update task. That's what I want. 8 o'clock, meeting with Bob. The description, the priority is high. Everything looks good. Let's drag it back over here to unscheduled. Anywhere over here is fine. Update the task. Good, that's what I want. Drag it back to another date. Click update task. Perfect. All right, so you see now it's 1 hour. So this is an hour and a half. Let's check the duration starting from 8 all the way up to 9:30. Remember, 9:30. So a brand new appointment's available at 9:30. That blocks out an hour and a half of our schedule. That's really good. That's what I want. We'll double check the task, right? It's scheduled for 12:31. If I move it over inside, if I move it to a different day, it doesn't have to be. Click update. Now it's scheduled for January 1st. Now it changes to January 1st. If I change the scheduled time from 8 o'clock, right, to let's say we want to put it to 9:30 and click update, now it's scheduled for 9:30. Now it's scheduled for 9:30. Exactly. All right, great. We are already over an hour in this training and we've got a lot more to cover. So why don't we split this up and get the rest of it done next week? I have so much more to teach you and share with you. And also I want your feedback, your suggestions, your ideas to make these applications even better. Your ideas are a big part of that. Your shares, your likes are also going to help me, especially on these multi-parters where the second and the third one, the views tend to go down. So you guys don't keep up with this. And that's why I don't do these larger projects. But if you want me to do these these larger projects. I love to do them. As long as you keep enjoying them and sharing them and liking them and commenting, I'll keep doing them. So let me know in the comments, what would you like to see next week? We're going to do part 2. We're going to show you how to update a task, how to add a task, and how to edit them. And perhaps even if we're going to do a part 3, maybe we could add even reoccurring appointments inside this to automatically create appointments based on daily, weekly, monthly. There's a lot of ideas, and I want to hear your feedback, your ideas. So go ahead and put those in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. And again, if you want to support us, I would really love it. Go ahead and pick up the 100 workbooks of my best. It's just $37, and that goes a long way. I'll include the links down below. Thank you much. We'll see you for part 2 of the Task Manager next week. Don't forget to watch it. Look out for the links. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get those notifications. All right, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.